All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show where we look at last night's slate, we look at today's slate, and we game plan what we're planning on doing. Of course, this is DFS Optimizer, and this is just what I use to just kind of go through the slate. Um, let's not sugarcoat around it. You all know I like to be as honest with you all as possible. Last night was not a great night for me. I feel like DFS NBA is great at humbling you. Uh, over the last few days, I felt like I was seeing things so clearly, almost like I could predict the future a little bit. But last night was like, ha, you know nothing. We got some calls right, but that Boston Golden State Warriors game, and especially when it went into overtime, it just destroyed all my lines. But let's look at the winning lineup last night. I believe this was the 50K winning line. Guy whistles. Nice job, man. Trey Jones was in the winning lineup. We got exposure to him in the domination station. So that went well. I did cap my exposure to him around 30% or so, but was still over the field. Derek White was not on him. We know we can pick on the Golden State Warriors, so none of this is shocking. That game was weird, though. Tatum missed a bit of the first quarter. Again, it went into overtime, so it's not a surprise when that happens that these guys are going to show up. There's one guy, Al Horford. I would have forced some exposure to him if I was 150ing instead of 20 maxing, but I doubt I would have. I did have a min on Jaylen Brown, but there wasn't really a world where I would have probably played these guys with my process. So it's unfortunate, but these nights do happen. Bobby Portis, we were over the field on slightly. I wish I had more. We knew in this matchup the upside was there, though, so that wasn't a surprise. Joe Val, we had a min on. We were slightly over the field on him. Damian Lillard, I actually had a 20 to 25% min on, so we were over the field on him. Al Horford, I should have had more exposure to. It made sense. We even talked about it. We like picking on the Warriors front court, and Porzingis was out, so a lot made sense there. Just didn't land there, unfortunately. And then Sandro, we had exposure to. I ended up being slightly under the field, which wasn't what I was going for. I was trying to get a little bit of leverage there, but it is what it is. All in all, not my best night. It's okay. It happens. Let's get back on track today, though. Zolo, hope you're doing well, man. Dave, appreciate the support. If you could hit the like button, that would be awesome. Dixon, it was Ingram. Yeah, Ingram went off last night. You didn't need him because no one played him. But yeah, out of the Pelicans, it was an Ingram night. Mr. Five, good to see you, man. Yeah, Dave, yesterday just kicked my ass. And, it happens. I try not to overthink it. It's weird. Days like that, like I said, they humble you. They make you question everything. It's like, am I good? But it's like, yeah, look at your track record, man. You still got it. But last night was tough. Anyway, moving on. Let's look at today's slate. It's a wild one. There's quite a few questionable tags per usual, but it's interesting. So let's look at it. Starting off, we have the Hornets going up against the Pacers. This is the highest game total on the slate at 248. You all know my philosophy here. I'm comfortable playing anyone from this game, and especially I am going to force exposure to the studs. And thankfully, once again, these guys are going to be low owned. The spread is pretty wide, so that's slightly concerning, but I would expect that here. One thing that makes me a little bit less nervous about it, though, is that the Pacers have not been good ever since the end season tournament. Even Halliburton, his upside has been a little capped. So I'm liking this spot. We'll see when ownership updates, but I'm not expecting these guys to be too popular. For those of you that don't know, the Hornets, Gordon Hayward is listed as probable. Mark Williams is doubtful. That's their center. So that does make a play like Nick Richards look pretty solid. We've been playing bigs against the Pacers for a while now. They don't have a great defensive team. And then Terry Rozier, he leads this team in usage. He does a lot for them. I want to make sure I have exposure to him, but he'll probably see some ownership. If you want to get a little cute, I think Miles Bridges has some upside in a spot like this, but he's priced appropriately for that upside. So you're definitely taking a lot of risk on a play like Bridges. And of course, we'll see on the pre-lock show once we have all the news if I think it's worth taking that kind of shot, but he's on my radar as a potential play. Similar story with Miller and Hayward, but I'm a little bit less excited about them. And I believe that's everyone I'm really looking at. Hey, Doogie, we'll get there. This is the early show. We're just talking through the slate, seeing what's going on. Pre-lock show we'll have like the lock-in set in stone, like, hey, these are the best plays. But for now, we're just talking it through. There's some guys we like, even in this first game. There's Terry, there's Nick Richards, there's Halliburton, but we'll get there. Yeah, Donovan Mitchell's sick now. It's just like, who wants to play basketball today? We'll see. Turner, yeah, Turner's gonna be interesting. He's questionable as well. Yeah, we'll get to that team soon. FanDuel pricing algorithm showing that you need to play balance rather than stars and scrub because it's hard to get to Joel and Luca. I could see that on FanDuel. Honestly, I'm not a FanDuel guy, unfortunately, so it's tough. Yo, what's up, JJ? Hopefully he's not chalky. I agree, Zolo. Would love for these guys not to be popular tonight. Thomas Dye, good to see you, man. Glad you're able to make it. Dixon said, how scared are you of blowout potentials here? Yeah, it's definitely a risk, but I personally never, I try my best to not try and predict blowouts because usually people who try to, every time that you try to predict it, you're like, oh, damn, that game stayed way closer than I thought it was going to be. And then if you do play, and then vice versa, it's just really hard to predict blowouts. You see it all the time. Vegas gets it wrong. Even last night, that game stayed a little bit closer than people thought it would. So I don't really put blowouts into consideration, but it's definitely a viable approach. It's just not my strategy. Yep, no, I agree with that, Josh. I don't think you're wrong there. Ortiz, good to see you. And Grayson, what's up, team? I feel like we have everybody in here today. Appreciate y'all sticking it out with me. All right, let's see. For the Pacers side of the ball, they definitely have a fantastic matchup against the Hornets. This team has been god awful all year, which is a little hard to say, but I lost the love for this team a long time ago. So for the Pacers, Miles Turner is questionable. Jalen Smith is questionable. We saw Isaiah Jackson do well enough in that last game where he was able to get the start. And Isaiah Jackson would become very viable in a really good matchup against the Hornets here. So if Turner's out, he's viable. There is risk involved, though. If Turner's out, Isaiah Jackson starts and Jalen Smith is healthy enough to play, that could lower my excitement a little bit just because Jalen Smith is a guy who has seen decent run before in the past. So it just doesn't give Isaiah Jackson as much leeway as you might assume. Tyrese Halliburton, if this ownership stays at close to zero, we're going to be way over that. And I like the spot. We will need this game to stay close for him to smash, and he hasn't smashed in a while from a point standpoint, but he's on my radar there. Mr. Five, you like Nesmith? All right, I don't hate it. I know you're usually pretty good at spotting value. As of right now, I'm not looking at him, but he did have a nice game with Turner out. So that usage increase could definitely be interesting if Turner ends up getting ruled out. All right, let's see. Yeah, Josh, same here. Like the Booker didn't come through. Ja was right. Like I was glad I had exposure, but Lillard was better. You didn't need Giannis. There was quite a few pivots that and differences we could have made better. That could have made yesterday better. I didn't really get on the Herb Jones train, but I get it. He really disappointed early on. Ooh, Fox's birthday. Nice birthday narrative. I like it. Anyway, moving on. Halliburton is a guy I'm looking at forcing exposure to, and then the questionable tags will dictate what I'm doing with their bigs here. Again, this is the highest total game on the slate, so usually my approach here is however much of exposure I get to these guys in the optimizer, I try my best to not limit it because this is the best game environment on the slate. And for some reason, still usually goes pretty unowned, so I'm fine with it. Next up, we have the Timberwolves going up against the 76ers. For the Timberwolves, for once, Edwards is not questionable. And so it looks like he'll see decent run going up against the Sixers. As of right now, these guys really are not standing out for me too much. Anthony Edwards has been really good over the last two games against Indiana and Miami. Indiana plays at a really fast pace, the team that we like to pick on, so that wasn't a shock. We were on that. Miami's defense hasn't been as good this season, so that's not really as surprising. The Sixers, though, and the 9K price tag, it's keeping me pretty uninterested in this team, especially Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert going up against Embiid, not overly excited about that either. So Pretty easy pass for me today for the Timberwolves. Zola, you're right. He has had good games. Wouldn't shock me if Edwards does well today, but it's a really large slate, and I'm really trying to target guys who are in really good spots, whereas Edwards is relatively neutral for me. But he could show up, Michael. That's always the risk, guys. Y'all know that. Yeah, he is having baby mama drama. Is getting public. Does that make him angry and the narrative's like he's going to go explode, or is he going to kind of shrivel up and not do as well? I'm not reading into the narrative personally. I'm just not overly excited about him tonight. Josh, that's real. That Terrence Mann and Norman Powell. That's real, especially if Norman Powell doesn't play. Anyway, for the Sixers tonight, I feel like we've been riding the Embiid train for a while. I wish he was chalky just because this is a pretty solid spot to not force Embiid in on a 10-game slate and in one of the tougher matchups in the league. So, again, Embiid is always a decent dart throw. We know he has ceiling for days no matter what the matchup is, but I prefer playing him in softer matchups and better game environments. Tyrese Maxey's price needs to fall as of like 2 weeks ago. He really just needs to be around 8K instead of 9,100. This price tag is still ridiculous. If there was some sort of injury news here, then obviously he'll be more interesting, but I'm not going there today in a really tough matchup. All right, Dixon. It's going to be low owned. I'm okay with the shot. Darius, nice to see you, man. Glad you're here. All right, next up we have the Miami Heat. Now, this seemed like a game, the lowest game total on the slate, that would be pretty easy for us to write off today. But fortunately / unfortunately, I am playing the Miami Heat tonight. Let's see. From an injury news standpoint, Jimmy Butler has already been ruled out, so we know that. Kevin Love is out, and so those are two guys that have a pretty large impact. The Magic are not a team we like to pick on. They've improved a lot defensively this season. But when Jimmy's out, I'm going, and especially with them still being so low owned because they don't stand out from a projection standpoint, no one else is going to play them in the industry. I'm going to have increased exposure to Kyle Lowry, to Tyler Hero, to Bam Adebayo, just because they all see an increasing usage with Jimmy Butler off the court. And I'll give you some specific numbers here. Kyle Lowry sees a 3.7% increase in usage. He has the highest rate. And then I have the Cavs up right now. I can't pull up the specific numbers, but Heroes and Bam both saw decent minutes returning from being out for a good chunk of time. So I'm not really overly concerned about their minutes. It's really just the price tags. We're paying a premium for both Hero and Bam. But again, no one else is playing them. I'll probably have somewhere between 5 and 10% on all of these guys tonight. Anyone else? You could I don't think you need to take a shot. Martin's too expensive. Don't like Duncan Robinson's price tag. I just like Bam, Hero, Lowry. God, this is feeling like a very contrarian show so far, but I was not planning on it being. Next up, we have the Magic. Again, they've been good. Miami hasn't been a great defense. They've just been average, but they have been playing at a very slow pace. And that's what's been kind of just still keeping that reputation / even like DVP numbers decently well. From an injury news standpoint for the Magic, Joe Ingles is out. Markelle Fultz is out. None of that matters to me too much. Ultimately, I am not overly excited about the Magic tonight, unfortunately. Again, like I said, the matchup is just pretty neutral for me. I think Paolo and Franz are fine fill-in players, but if I don't get them naturally in the domination station, I'm not going to force exposure to them tonight. Yeah, Wendell Carter Jr. is back. He is back. That is true. Going up against Bam, though, I never a big fan. I think there will be some Carter Jr. nights, though. 7,600. Oh, a little bit cheaper. That's nice. Yeah, Lowry gets way more aggressive. He's still not safe by any means, and that's why he's low owned. He can be volatile even when Butler is out, but that boost is enough for me to play him tonight. Ooh, yeah, not having multi-position eligibility is not great. Next up, we have another team that I'm kind of surprised I don't like more and that the domination station doesn't like as much right now, which you can always tell by just looking at fantasy points per dollar. Uh, for me, when it comes to injury news, the Jazz are, let's see here, relatively healthy with the guys who have been out for a while. Obviously, George, Clarkson, they've been gone for a while. So not overly excited about anyone here. This is a revenge game for Colin Sexton. His ownership, though, is elevated to around 10%. If he was as low owned as some of the guys in the earlier games, like 1%, 2%, I would say, yeah, Colin Sexton, I'll have 5 to 10%. But I can't get leverage on Sexton tonight. I think there's guys who are in better spots and who are honestly just better priced as well. 7,200 is a bit hard for me to pay for Sexton at this point. And these other plays, they're not standing out to me a ton. I'm okay with getting to them naturally, but not overly excited about the Jazz tonight. Diggy, not for me. I'm not trying to get to Paolo. Not tonight for me. Now, the Cleveland side of this game is way more interesting tonight. So we already have Darius Garland out. We have Evan Mobley out. I'll count Ty Jerome, even though he doesn't matter. And then Donovan Mitchell is questionable with an injury. So let's just talk through what happens if Donovan Mitchell doesn't play, just because that's the exciting part I'm looking for / hoping for. Max Strus actually sees the highest increasing usage here with a 10.5% increase in usage. That is gigantic. Max Strus would be someone I want to prioritize on this slate. We all know Max Strus can be streaky and tends to burn us when he's super chalky. So hopefully he goes a little bit under the radar and people focus on Allen and Porter Jr. and other guys instead. But Max Strus is someone I do not want to forget about tonight. Niang is also a guy who sees a 4.7% increase in usage, comes in relatively cheap. I like his upside here. And then Craig Porter Jr. sees the highest or sees a nice increase in usage and has the highest increase in DK plus minus differentials. So he's someone that would probably end up being a core play for everyone if Donovan Mitchell ended up getting ruled out tonight. Yeah, Zolo, you're not right. You're not right. Strus does seem to burn us quite often, but you know me, I have a short-term memory, so I'm willing to go back if the numbers say it's a good play. I'll just do it. Okoro would be worth having in the mix as well. Nothing really points to him from a usage rate standpoint. We know the upside is there. Personally, I don't want Okoro to be a core play, but I do want some exposure to him. Good call. And then, yeah, of course, Jared Allen as well we would have to assume takes on a bit more of an offensive dominant, like he takes on more of an offensive role. He's a good play, honestly, even if Donovan Mitchell does play. This Jazz front court has been really bad this season. Jared Allen is still only 7K. Evan Mobley's out. I like Jared Allen whether Donovan Mitchell plays or doesn't play. Yeah, no, I like that. I again, if Mitchell's out, we're going to play the Cavs tonight. I always just have like a little voice that whispers in my head that says, and again, I'm going to fade Dean Wade, but it's, will he actually do something and burn me? I hope not. I hope not. Next up, we have the Nuggets going up against the Raptors. The Nuggets, I never like any of these guys outside of Jokic. Jokic has shown a real floor here recently. He's had like a 20-point performance and a 30-point performance. We haven't seen that in a long time. Jokic will be relatively low owned. I'll have exposure to Jokic slightly over the field on him tonight. The other pieces here, they're not really standing out for me, so I'm not trying to get there as of right now. Brandon will be on the pre-lock show today. He usually likes taking a shot on Jamal Murray, and so we'll see if he's on his radar. All right, the Raptors. I feel like I play the Raptors on every single slate. Let me check right quick. We'll look at the sim model and see if my guy Siakam is standing out. Scotty Barnes is not. Siakam, yeah. Siakam standing out once again. Not surprised. Not surprised. And Siakam, I can guarantee for you at this point, will be a leverage play for me on this slate. Not someone I'm overly excited about, just given the matchup against the Nuggets, but I'll have around 5 to 10% exposure. Outside of that, I do not plan on playing too much of the Raptors tonight here. Yeah, Doogie, he's so low owned. So low owned. The matchup isn't great though, but upside is definitely still there. Gary Trent showing up as a core play for me currently. Ooh, it's early, Josh. It's early. Waiting for the let me know tweet from Mitchell. That really is it. Let them know tweet. Once we see that, we're like, all right, he's playing. Trent can still kick rocks. He had a good game last time out, I think. But again, he's not going to be a priority for me by any means. I'm really just looking at Siakam in that game. It's a 10-game slate, guys. Hard to get too focused on just one game. Next up, we have the Knicks. They're looking pretty healthy. Randall being chalky. This is a decent spot for him, decent price tag, but I don't foresee him. I think I'll be under the field on Randall. I'm not going to X him out. If he shows up for me naturally, I'm fine with it, but I'm not excited about him in general or the Knicks. They're all just healthy. There's some really good spots on this slate, and that one just feels kind of meh to me. Hey, well, we're playing Siakam, so I hope it goes well. Kevin said Halliburton going over 41. My guy, I'm not the props guy, unfortunately. Dun, dun. Craig, good to see you, man. Let's see. For the Nets, similar story here. I mean, you can obviously take your shots on Bridges. Bridges' price tag is getting wild. 7,500. Let me look at the sim right quick on him. Still doesn't like him. Cam Thomas had a strong game last time out, but I'm not really going to try to chase that here. Claxton, 6,200. I'm fine getting to him, but there's other bigs I like more than him on this slate. There's just nothing standing out for me too much in this game. Everyone's favorite team, the Lakers. Per usual, looking at Anthony Davis here. He is questionable. So there's that, but he's always questionable. So once again, not overly concerned. I'm just going to have some exposure to him and hope we get that news in time. LeBron James is also questionable, but he's played more than he hasn't at this point, but worth mentioning. The important thing here is really that Gabe Vincent's listed as probable. Gabe, he's been out for a while, and him returning really just makes the other pieces for the Lakers really gross. So like Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, these are guys we've had some exposure to recently. I do not want exposure to them tonight if Gabe Vincent plays, which he probably will. So I'm not planning on getting here outside of AD. Let me see. This isn't a televised game, right? Just gotta check just in case. Yeah, no one's watching this game. So yeah, it's just AD. For the Bulls, Alex Caruso is probable. Patrick Williams is probable. Quite a few pieces there. You guys know I've been so off on Kobe White recently. We do know Lakers have been bad against the guards as of late, especially. So I am totally cool getting exposure to Kobe White, but I don't really want to hop on the train now. But he makes a ton of sense here. Very viable. I think Kobe White is in play. Vucevic, we've been on that train for a while. He's only 7,900. We can play bigs against the Lakers. Vucevic, especially if he stays around 10% owned, will be a leverage play for me tonight. I like him. And DeMar DeRozan, usually pretty hard for me to get to. Let me see. 8,100 DeRozan. Definitely has some upside. My plan as of right now is to be around field weight exposure on DeRozan. I'm not overly excited about him, though, either. Like I said, a lot of my pieces are coming from that Hornets-Pacers game. I'm looking at the Cleveland side of things, too, and this Clippers-Mavs game. Next up, we have the Hawks going up against the Rockets. Gonna be honest with y'all, also not looking to go here. Of course, you can take your shot on Trae Young. He's like the expensive high upside guy here. Clint Capella's been in decent form as of late. I'm not trying to chase that. I'm not excited about the Hawks tonight. Let's see. Yeah, Mr. Five. We've been saying that forever. We've been on this play guards against LA train for a while now. So we are good to go there. Just DeMar for me. Okay, yeah, nice. I don't hate that. Suggs is going over. All right. Suggs with the Magic. I can see it. Zolo said DeRozan also playing against his hometown team. Yeah, it's crazy. I forgot about that, where everyone thought DeRozan might go to the Lakers. It's funny how the Bulls have gotten better with Levine being out. Some things are weird. Craig said, I've been riding Kobe for 2 weeks. Nice, man. Nice. That's awesome. Doogie, he's projected good. Yep. Mr. Five, shitty Hawks game. Jalen Green or Fred VanVleet. Yeah. Fred VanVleet finally woke up the other day. We've been playing him forever. He had a really strong game against Cleveland, and then he's just been kind of okay outside of that. I do like picking on Trae Young. But let me check the sim and just make sure we're on the same page and aligned. We look at Fred VanVleet. And for those of you that are new, the sim model is something that I look at as a tool here at DFS Army. Yeah, it's on Fred once again. So I do wish Fred VanVleet was a bit lower owned, but he's someone that I don't want to forget about him on this slate. Outside of that, this is looking like a relatively chalky team, like Jalen Green, Jabari Smith. They're all seeing ownership. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything, but I think Fred VanVleet is someone I want exposure to. Şengün is interesting. I think I should get a little bit of exposure naturally to him since he's projecting pretty well without me doing anything to him. I think Green, Smith, Eason, I don't want to force exposure to on this slate, but if I get him, I get him. They're not bad plays. All right, the Clippers is where things get interesting. This is another team I'm actually excited to play guys from. We have Paul George listed as questionable. We know how good this team has been from a scoring standpoint. We hit on the low-owned James Harden the other day. Kawhi Leonard at 8,700 is looking very interesting. Both of those guys will be significantly higher owned if Paul George ends up not playing tonight. If he does play, I will still have James Harden exposure, probably around 5%. Kawhi Leonard will probably be around field weight, and Paul George will probably be around field weight even if he does play. Zubac has been fantastic. We know we can play bigs against the Mavericks. We've had some success with that. And their center is out Lively, so it's even a better matchup. And then Zubac himself has also just been really good. So this is just one of those teams that I plan on having a lot of exposure to. Love the Clippers. Love them. Love them even more if Paul George is out, which I should talk about. If Paul George is out, then and if Norman Powell is out, we basically have to play Terrence Mann at that point. They use him in a lot of different ways, and so I would expect him to see the highest boost here outside of Harden and Leonard. And that's pretty much it. Next up, we have Doncic. I'll be over the field on Luka tonight. It's that simple. He is the most expensive stud on the slate, I believe. Yeah, he is. But I'll be at least field weight, depending on how the news comes out with value. I'll be at least around 5%, but ideally I'll be over the field to him. I just like the relatively high game total, third highest game total on the slate, and should stay close and competitive with PG playing or without PG playing. So he's just one of my favorite studs on this slate. Like I mentioned, Lively is out, but I never like playing the Mavs bigs. Let's see. Hey, Zolo. Yeah, I like Luka a lot tonight. I didn't even think about his relationship with the Clippers, but you're not wrong. I just like the high game total and the close spread. Zubac feasting, yeah, would not shock me at all here. Want to be over the field on him. And then next up, we have Tatum, or we have the Celtics. Wow, not just his team. We have the Celtics on the back end of a back to back. Let me double check. Yeah, Al Horford more than likely will not play tonight. Luke Cornett is out. Tatum did get hurt, like I mentioned at the start of the show, early on in yesterday's game. So it wouldn't shock me if he decides to rest today, but that's just a lot of theory crafting. I've heard absolutely nothing that leads me to believe that will actually happen. So it's something I want to keep a close eye on, and I'm kind of hoping happens because I would love to play Brown and White tonight against the Kings if Tatum was ruled out. But if everyone's healthy here, I'm not forcing exposure to these guys on the back end of a back to back. But wait. This is the second highest game total. And so if Tatum does play and he's going to be this low owned, I'm going to have exposure to him and Brown, probably around 5% on both. And then similar story here with Sabonis and Fox. Second highest game total on the slate, closest spread. So even though there's this Pacers Hornets game, which I do like and I will have exposure to, I'm really treating the Clippers, Mavs, Celtics, Kings game as the real highest total game on the slate, just because of how close the spread is. We see studs consistently have ceiling performances in spots like this. And so I'm going to play these guys, at least Sabonis and Fox. Outside of that, it gets a little bit more gross. I need someone to be out to play a Monk or Murray, something like that. So, like I said at the start of the show, very interesting slate, but a lot of news. And we're waiting on a lot of that news. And so, ideally, that will come in by the time the pre-lock show starts. Like I mentioned, Brandon and I will both be available for that today. If you're interested in seeing that show, there's a link in the description for that. Darius, you're right. The Celtics have a lot of players to feed. That's why I primarily try to just focus on the studs and let the domination station do the rest of the work for me. So I'll see you all later today. If you're not able to join that, I'll see you all tomorrow. Hopefully we all have a lot to celebrate, and I'll see you all later. Peace out. Bye, guys.